Have you guys ever noticed how bitter parishioners at Woke United Methodist seem to be? Have you guys ever noticed that? I don't think I have ever seen these people smile. I can't remember a time when I've seen them laugh. Now, of course, laughter is strictly prohibited because stand-up comedy is a violation of the woke commandments. But either way, these people seem to be absolutely miserable. During the winter, they are complaining because it's cold. During the summer, they're freaking out because it's so hot. Climate change! Climate change! The Gulf of Mexico is so hot it's baking Shamu! There's a writer for the Washington Post. His name is N something, N Wanker Spanker, who knows? But I'm not kidding you. Every single week this summer, one of his doom and gloom articles appears in my newsfeed. Every single week, this dude provides an update on the weather in the South. The South is extremely hot. Last week in New Orleans, the temperature was 100 degrees. Well, no shit, N. It's called summer. Here in about 3 weeks, it'll be 90 degrees one day. It'll be 60 degrees the next morning. Happens every single year. Not called climate change. It's called changing seasons. The point is, though, worshipers of the oak tree, they are some of the most miserable people in the country. And no one is more miserable than America's oldest virgin, Keith Olbermann. It's been quite a while since we have talked about Keith Queef here on the channel. Nothing has changed. Keith Olbermann is still the same miserable wanker spanker that he's been for the last 15 or 20 years. He still hasn't figured out a way to convince a woman to be with him. But that does not mean there's no activity in his lonely apartment. Keith regularly enjoys the pound my brown cake with his emotional support goat, while his plethora of cats enjoy kibbles and bits. I feel like there are different levels of shit fuckery. For example, the Star Trek virgin Mike Freeman. When he's not spending his time trying to seduce Luke Skywalker, Mike fabricates stories of mythical racism for USA Today. Now, even though I think he is misguided, I don't think Mike Freeman is a bad guy. He's just a dork. Mike Freeman is the guy from high school who would politely ask you to remove his pocket protector before we dunked his head in the toilet. Guys like Stephen A. Smith, Shannon Sharp, they pretend to be strong believers in mythical racism, but I don't know, I feel like they're good people. I could have a beer with Stephen A. Smith. I could have a friendly conversation with Shannon Sharp. Of course, my first question would be, why does a 50-something-year-old man call himself Shay Shay? But then you have another category of Woke United Methodists that it consists of people that I believe are pure evil. The wicked wig of the woke, Joy Reid, falls into this category. I mean, there's got to be an element of evil in someone who has the ability to fly a broom. Very few people fall into this category of pure evil, but Keith Olbermann is damn sure one of them. This dude's constantly negative. He actively seeks out stories of positivity just to put his evil spin on it, which is exactly what he did yesterday with Riley Gaines. But before we get into that, let's get to the sponsor for today's video, my friends over at America Rising Coffee. Now, if you're anything like me, you cannot start your day without coffee. Hell, I can't start my morning or my afternoons without my cup of coffee. Now, I am notoriously picky when it comes to my coffee. When I first linked up with America Rising, I got to admit, I was skeptical about it. I didn't think it was possible for another brand of coffee to supersede my preferred brand. But America Rising did exactly that. To their credit, they remain true to their slogan, awake, not woke, which I find to be brilliant. This is some of the best coffee I've ever had, and it gives me the energy to start my day. This is also some of the purest coffee that I've ever drank. And there's a reason for that, because America Rising, they have personal relationships with their farmers. All their beans are hand-picked. This is not machine-processed garbage. Also, if you purchase coffee through America Rising, you can rest assured that your money, it's not going to be wasted being donated to Woke United Methodist. A portion of all sales and proceeds, they are donated to Dog Tag Buddies, which they link up military veterans suffering through PTSD with the service dogs that they need. Now, me personally, I went with the French roast. You can see it back here, but there are plenty of other flavors for you to choose from. Head over to AmericaRisingCoffee.com or click the link in the description below. Use my promo code BTL10023 to receive 10% off your first order with America Rising. All right, earlier this week, state of Nebraska, they passed legislation that It essentially banned transgender involvement in youth sports. The bill was called the Women's Bill of Rights. Included in the bill were adequate definitions of a man and a woman. Yeah. In the year 2023, state and local governments, they have got to sign legislation into law that accurately defines a man and a woman. Something so simple, something that was easily figured out in the Garden of Eden. Now that has to be defined by a state government because the federal government doesn't have a fucking clue. This legislation in Nebraska, it was celebrated by normal people, but there were a couple of miserable women who felt the need to express their fake outrage. Keith Olbermann and Megan Hunt. Well, KC, who in the hell is Megan Hunt? Meg is a state senator from Nebraska. According to her Twitter profile, Meg chooses to identify as a bi queen. Bi queen? Does that mean Meg identifies as both a man and a woman? Does she enjoy the cucumber and the peach? Luckily, the Megster was polite enough to explain her proper pronouns. Meg prefers she/her pronouns with the occasional they/them. Let me properly introduce you to Megan Hunt. Several months ago, she hosted a woke celebration after Nebraska legalized abortion. Remember how I told you a minute ago that these people never smile? Watch them as they cry tears of joy. Roll the film. We no longer need birth control. We no longer need those pesky IUDs. We can fornicate with our emotional support lovers, and Dr. Proctor will terminate the pregnancy in 52 weeks. Meg the Female Hunter's all about women's rights when it comes to abortion, but when it comes to protecting children, young females, against men pretending to be women invading their sports, Megan Hunt sides with toxic masculinity. Check it out for yourself. I want the governor to say this to my face. We will see who has the physical advantage. Was that like a threat? Do we have a senator kind of threatening a governor here? Now, I've never seen a picture of the governor of Nebraska, but I don't care if the dude's 5'5" and Megan Hunt is the Nebraskan version of Lizzo. The dude still has the physical advantage. The beautiful Riley Gaines, she replied to this tweet from Megan Hunt. You know, I am really proud of Riley Gaines. Riley Gaines is a prime example of what normal people do when we are faced with adversity. Riley Gaines took a bad situation, which was being forced to compete against King Kong disguised as Leah Thomas. She took that negative situation where her spot was stolen at the NCAA championships, and Riley Gaines turned that into a positive movement. Not only that, Riley Gaines has figured out a way to monetize this movement and made a nice career for herself. And you know what? Good for Riley Gaines. But anyway, she responds to this tweet from Megan Hunt, reminding the people of Nebraska who they have representing them in state government. If you live in Nebraska, just be aware that you have a state representative who is unable to define a woman even though she appears to be one. That's all Riley Gaines was doing here, encouraging Nebraskans to get rid of the identifier in the next election. Now, what does this have to do with Keith Olbermann? Absolutely nothing. But he decided to inject his unwanted opinion anyway. Check it out for yourself. This right here, this is a classic example. This is what deacons at Woke United Methodists do when they can't argue their point. Instead of Keith Queef trying to formulate an argument as to why men should be competing in women's sports, he decides to personally attack Riley Gaines. Let's just be real here. You suck at swimming. That's why you lost. Are we in the third grade? Isn't Keith Olbermann over the age of 60? The dude looks like he's 90. This dude is old enough to be Riley Gaines' grandfather, and he's trying to insult her with elementary insults? Obviously, these remarks from Keith Olbermann have no basis in reality. Riley Gaines is actually one hell of a swimmer. Let's just Compare the athletic resumes of Keith Olbermann and Riley Gaines. Riley Gaines holds the SEC record in the 200 butterfly. Now, I have no idea what the hell that is, but she holds the record for it. Riley Gaines qualified for the NCAA championships, which is the equivalent of making it to the Elite Eight in March Madness. Riley Gaines would have been recognized for her accomplishments at the NCAA championships, but she was replaced on the podium by Leah Thomas. Riley Gaines is a decorated D1 collegiate athlete. But what about Keith Olbermann? What are his athletic accomplishments? Well, Keith Olbermann does hold the record for the cucumber stroke. While scrolling through profiles on Grindr, Keith Olbermann stroked the cucumber a record-breaking 5,280 times. There was nothing left of the damn thing once Keithy finished stroking. He is also an accomplished runner. One time, he found his way to a nude beach by mistake. There were dozens of beautiful college-aged women on the beach making sure that they didn't have tan lines. Eyewitnesses say Keith Olbermann was so frightened, he ran away so fast, he was able to pass a Corvette that was traveling 70 miles an hour. This dude is an absolute embarrassment. On his Twitter profile, Keith Olbermann uses emojis, which no self-respecting man should ever do unless he's texting his woman. But Keith Olbermann uses emojis, and he brags about having 3 million monthly listeners for his garbage podcast across all platforms and YouTube. Well, guess what, Keithy? So do I. And I don't have friends in the mainstream media promoting me. This dude is the definition of misery. Oftentimes, I feel bad for people like Keith Olbermann, but I have no sympathy for this man. This dude was so insufferable. He managed to get fired from MSNBC. Shit fucks can't even tolerate Keith Olbermann. Give me your thoughts. Nebraska passes legislation essentially banning transgender involvement in youth sports. State Senator Megan Hunt expresses her fake outrage. Keith Olbermann publicly humiliates himself again. What do you guys think about Riley Gaines? More specifically, what do you think of her monetizing this movement against transgender involvement in sports? I think it's great, but interested to hear your thoughts. Let me know. Sound off in the comments below. Make sure to like and subscribe. Click the notification bell to receive all notifications from the channel. Best way to contact me is by email at btlkc84@gmail.com, KC_BTL84 on Twitter. I'll see you guys tomorrow.